It is reported in the British press today that a lot of graduate debt in this country is being written off. The situation in Britain has been for many years that students normally accumulate debt in the time at university that they then repay following graduation relative to earnings, and that any unpaid graduate debt is written off after 30 years. I'm not trying to persuade you that is either right or wrong, because I'm not really into politics here, I'm into economics. But I want to consider three arguments which were used when student loans were brought in. And one of the arguments was that if you have a degree and your degree helps you earn a better salary, then you should repay something. The second is that repayment is related to the ability to pay. When student loans were brought in, different people were arguing for different schemes, but almost all of the people who were arguing for loans were arguing for some form of repayment related to earnings. But I did mention earlier ability to pay, didn't I? The third argument used was that the loan scheme would at some point become self-perpetuating, self-financing. The repayments on graduate debt paid by one generation of graduates would pay the loans of the current generation of students. None of these three arguments stand up very well to scrutiny. The first one, that if you are a graduate and you earn good money as a result of your degree, is flawed, because if you are a graduate and you don't, if you graduate and you do earn a good salary, it's not necessarily to do with your degree. You could go to law school and become a lawyer and earn lots of money as a lawyer, and we can say yes, your income derives from your degree. But you might go to university and then become a salesman and earn a lot of money as a salesman. But you don't have to have a degree to be a salesman. So we could argue that if you're a high-earning salesman and you've got a degree, but your income has nothing to do with your degree. If you're a member of parliament, you don't need a degree to be a member of parliament. So should a high-earning MP repay graduate debt? What about the Prime Minister? You don't need a degree to be Prime Minister. And so on. The second argument, that it's related to ability to pay, is disproven. It's not related to ability to pay, it is related to earnings, and that is not the same thing as ability to pay. In Britain today, you might get somebody earning £17,000 a year who is quite comfortable. You might get somebody earning £25,000 a year who is struggling. Your ability to pay or to repay graduate debt depends upon such factors as how much you earn and your cost of living, and that cost of living is influenced by rent, mortgage, whatever, cost of travelling to and from work, and cost of utility bills, etc. Also, whether or not you've got a family to support. There are so many factors at work here. To say that a scheme of repayment which is related to earnings is also related to ability to pay is false. The third argument, that any scheme of loans could become self-financing, that is disproven by the fact that it is currently predicted that around 50% of all graduate debt is going to be ultimately written off. It is estimated that of those students currently at university, about 30% will ultimately repay in full, and about 70% will either not repay all their graduate debt or possibly even repay none of it. It is hard to see how such a scheme can ever be self-financing. So I'm not saying that we should condone the present system or oppose it. I'm merely wanting you to understand the issues from an economic perspective.